and have the nation as an ideal, oh, what relief. Perhaps you have that, it happened to me once, many years ago. We had gone to South Africa for one whole month, and in that 1 month we didn't see a single Indian. In those days there was apartheid, not that many people would go to South Africa from India. And on the way back, exactly after 1 month in Mauritius at the airport, from a distance I saw a Gujarati lady. How do I know she's Gujarati? She had worn the Gujarati sari. What a thrill I got. But here in Bombay, do you get thrilled every time you see her? That's what it is. When you identify with the nation, every Indian you meet, doesn't matter what he is, educated or uneducated, literate or illiterate, refined or unrefined, rich or poor. You see the people on the street selling flowers, or I don't know, whatever it is they sell, or begging even. Look at the expression on their faces, and it can spark you off. There's an American who came to Bombay for the first time, and at Kemp's Corner, at the signal, we had to stop there, and you know how they are. The moment they see a foreigner, everybody flocks there. There's this lady who was selling flowers, and she kept coming and tapping on the window. And I was wondering, she's getting really aggressive. I turned around. She wasn't begging. She was trying to tell me that my sari had got stuck in the door. And she came out with such a beautiful smile. This American said, "My God, I've traveled the whole world and I have never seen anybody with such a divine smile." So that's what it is. That ideal, the higher the ideal, the greater the oneness, the greater the excitement that you feel. The third way of doing it is identification. If you identify with your body, you see maximum separateness, because physically all of us are necessarily distinct and different from each other. If you identify with your own mind, then instantly you begin to see a oneness with all those whom you love. Even though physically you are separate, in fact, with reference to a person you love, the fact that physically you are separate itself gives you pain, because that oneness is so strong. You rise still further and identify with your intellect. Say a scientist who's working on a project, he sees all scientists, doesn't matter from which part of the world, what race, what religion, what nationality, it doesn't matter. They're all one. There's a oneness that the scientist feels. In the field of music, it's there. Classical musicians see a oneness which crosses all barriers of race, nationality, religion, etc. And you identify with Atman, you will see no separateness. And this is the cause of the tremendous vitality, energy, cheer and happiness that a spiritual person experiences. Because he is identified with Atman. So wherever he looks, wherever he goes, he simply sees it as a manifestation of Atman. He is not concerned with the physical, emotional or intellectual attributes. Physically, a person may be ugly. Emotionally, he may have disgusting emotions. Intellectually, he may be a total fool. That doesn't matter to him. He simply reaches out to the Atman behind all this. So this is what we discussed yesterday, and now we continue with verse 30.
Prakrutyaiva cha karmani kriyamāṇāni sarvashah ya pashyati tathatmānam akartāram sapashyati.
One sees, who sees that all actions are performed by Prakriti, matter, alone, and that the self is actionless. The subject is still Prakriti and Purusha. The distinction, this is the title of the entire chapter, the distinction between matter and spirit, between Kshetra and Kshetrajna. So what he's saying is, he's repeating this in several verses, and throughout the Gita he says, Yaha pashyati saha pashyati. He sees. He's the only one who sees. Who sees that all actions are performed by Prakriti? Meaning, a person who doesn't see this is blind. All of us are blind. We've completely lost ourselves. We've lost our identity. Even in the relative sense, we've lost our identity. The other day, there was a lady, she is South Indian, and she was calling her insurance agent for some check that the insurance company was supposed to send her. This is actually happened. Huh? Sometimes I cook up stories, but this is a true story. She rang up the insurance agent and said, before she could answer, and mind you, she was calling from her cell to his cell, so he obviously knew where the call was coming from. And she said hello, and she has a very feminine voice. This man took off. Ha, Ghansham bhai, kem cho, something. She got so totally confused. She says, I'm Mrs. Patel here, she said. She's Mrs. Srinivasan. She says, I'm Mrs. Patel. Her son was sitting right opposite her. She said, Mommy, you lost it completely. You know what happened? The moment he said Ghansham bhai, she got confused for a minute, and out of that confusion, she told him that she is Mrs. Patel. So what we're trying to say is, in the absolute sense, we are Atman, we are Purusha. But we are so totally confused that out of that confusion we take on identities which have nothing to do with us, just as this lady has nothing to do with Patel. Patel happens to be that insurance agent's name. She has no Patel blood in her at all. She's a thoroughbred Tam Bram. Out of the blue, she says, Mrs. Patel. It was so funny. You had to be there. It was impossibly. This is what's happening to us. We are spirit, and we're taking on the identity of the body, mind and intellect that have nothing to do with the spirit. Absolutely nothing. And this is what is the cause of all our suffering. So what he's saying is, Yaha pashyati, that person sees, he is a wise man. Sa buddhiman manushyeshu, among human beings, such a person is a wise person. Who sees that all actions are performed by Prakriti. Prakriti, matter, means gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, vasanas. Out of vasanas, when you have a vasana, the chronology of action is, when you have a vasana, say for music, that manifests as a thought for music in the intellect, it consolidates as a desire for music, and then it manifests as action, you go to a music performance. When you have a vasana for Bhagavad Gita, you get a thought in the intellect for the Gita, then that thought gets consolidated as a desire, and that's how you have all come here. So, all actions spring from Prakriti, vasanas. Spirit, Atman, Purusha has nothing to do with actions. It's like this. Purusha itself is actionless but enables the body to perceive and act. Minus Purusha, the body cannot perceive, the body cannot act. It's like the bulb by itself has no light. Electricity by itself also doesn't have light. But when electricity passes through the bulb, there is this expression of light. There is the manifestation of light. Similarly, Purusha by itself is actionless. But when Purusha enlivens Prakriti, it enables the body to perceive and act. Purusha is emotionless. But when it functions through the mind, it empowers the mind to feel various emotions. Purusha is thoughtless. There are no thoughts in Atman. But when Purusha functions through the intellect, it enables the intellect to think, enlivens the intellect to think. The Bible uses the word quickens. Quickens means it gives life to the body, mind and intellect. So only a person who understands how this takes place, understands both Prakriti and Purusha. Just as only a person who understands the role of electricity and the role of the bulb in emission of light understands electricity and understands the bulb. A villager who doesn't understand anything is amazed, how does the light come? So, yaha pashyati, one sees, who sees that all actions are performed by Prakriti. When you understand that all actions are performed by Prakriti, matter, then you detach yourself from the functionings of matter and focus your attention on Purusha. Now, when you focus your attention on Purusha, what happens? You've got very selective amnesia. When you focus your attention on Prakriti, what happens? When you're focusing your attention on body, mind and intellect and its functionings, what happens? Desires increase. One person is following. When you shift your attention from Prakriti to Purusha, what happens? Desires reduce. Desires reduce and you gain more of the world. So it's a win-win situation. When you focus your attention on matter, desires increase, world doesn't come to you. You're chasing the world is running away from you. So, power rests in reduction of desires. You are rich by the number of things you can afford not to have. Remember that. You're not rich by the number of things you can afford to have. That any fool can have. So, one sees yaha pashyati saha pashyati. Next verse, 31.
Yada bhuta pruthak bhavam ekasthamanu pashyati tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadhyate tada.
One becomes Brahman when one sees the diversity of beings as existing in the one, ekastham, established in the one, rooted in the one, and tata eva cha vistaram, expanding from that alone. So this ekatvam, the ability to see the unity in the diversity, is a trait of a wise person. And it's very difficult to see that ekatvam, because your focus is on differences. You're looking for differences. A sattvic person is one who sees unity in diversity. A rajasic person is one who creates separateness where there is unity. It's so true. A family gets on beautifully well, everything is going on fine. Suddenly one member of the family appears on the scene and creates complete disruption, separateness. So that's why you've got to watch out for divisive forces. India is a country where there is maximum diversity, and in our culture there is complete unity. The beauty of this nation is if you travel, every 40-50 kilometers you go, the language changes, the food changes, the lifestyle changes, the dress, the textiles, everything changes. And yet there is a common cord that unites us all together. But because of our foolishness and rajasic behavior, we're creating differences where there is one. Even in the corporate world, one fellow is competing against the other, one fellow is backbiting against the other. How can you stand up to multinational corporations again unless we unite? If we unite, no force in the world can get the better of us. Because the moment you unite, there is this sattvic force that comes out. Ekatvam. It's very difficult to maintain that ekatvam, the unity. Disruption is the order of the day. There was a meeting of religious heads, and a meeting for peace. And there were the heads of, very famous heads of 3 religions, A, B and C. They met, and this conference went on over 3 days. And God was watching from above. And He was so happy that this meeting for peace went on peacefully. That He sent an angel and He said, go to these 3 guys and give them a special boon from me. So the angel went to the leader of religion A and said, God is very pleased with your movement for peace, and He's given you a boon. What would you like? He says, are you sure this is not recorded? He says, no. God doesn't need to record. He knows already what's happening. So he said, this fellow from B, leader of religion B, he is the cause of all the disruption. Blast him. Let him die. So the angel is so dejected. Goes to the head of religion B and asks him the same question. That fellow says, I have everything in the world. I'm very happy. Except, that fellow head of religion A is very aggressive. Why don't you blast him out of the earth? And the angel is about to get into complete depression. Then he goes to the head of religion C and he says, what is it that you want? And that guy says, I have everything. I'm very peaceful. There's nothing that I need. Only thing is, please fulfill the wishes of A and B. So it's very difficult to maintain that homogeneity, that oneness. Somewhere some wicked thought will come. Why should I? Why should I do this? That person gets all the credit. It happened the other day when I was in Bangkok and Hong Kong. The gentleman out of the blue came in. He's taking all the merit. When I've done the slogging, why should I? And you've gone on a delegation for some specific mission to outside the country. These two are busy fighting. What business are they going to get? So that's what it is. There has to be the concerted effort to maintain that oneness, to rise above differences. You must see your progress, your success, your prosperity in the oneness. Only then will you make an attempt to retain it. And even if the other person is disruptive, then you are able to ride over it. Otherwise, it's total disruption. 32.
अनादित्वा निर्गुणत्वात् परमात्मायमव्ययः शरीरस्थोऽपि कौन्तेय न करोति न लिप्यते.
O Kaunteya, Krishna addresses Arjuna very lovingly as Kaunteya means son of Kunti. This supreme immutable self, having neither beginning nor gunas, though resting in the body, does not act and is untainted. So he's driving it in. This verse, these last few verses are extremely inspiring if you get into the spirit of it. Now, let's go back to the overview of the chapter. We've gone through the first Kshetra and Kshetrajna, first 7 verses, then 20 traits of the wise, 8 to 12, then end of knowledge, Jneyam, 13 to 19, then Prakriti and Purusha, matter and spirit, 20 to 24, then he gives the path to wisdom. How do you get there? See Samatvam, 25 to 31, and now the last topic, 32 to 35, deals with what is this light of wisdom. So he's dealing with what is Purusha. O Kaunteya, son of Kunti, this supreme immutable self has neither beginning, anaditvat, it has no beginning. That which has a beginning must necessarily have an end. It's like this. When you go out into the ocean doesn't have a beginning or an end with reference to the waves. It's anadi, beginningless, endless. But the waves on the surface of the ocean have a beginning, have an existence, have an end. So you have the option of focusing on the wave. If you look at the wave, then you feel vulnerable, you feel insecure, you feel threatened, you need security, you need to look after yourself. But even when the wave is there, if you focus your attention on the ocean, nothing happens. Then you understand the wave as a part of the ocean. It's just a leela. It's fabulous. How in this vast ocean waves appear. I don't know whether you've ever noticed. You go out and look out into the ocean. It's amazing how the waves come, exist for a while and go smashing down again, meet with the ocean, merge with the ocean. If your focus is on the ocean, you admire the waves coming and going. If your focus is on the waves, then you go through the trauma and the agony and the ecstasy, both. Similarly, in life, if you identify with each one of us, the individual, then the individual has a beginning, a birth, an existence and a death. But even when the individual comes into being, lives for a while and dies, if your focus is on Atman, you're not affected by any of these changes. You understand this is part and parcel of life, just as you understand waves are a part and parcel of the ocean. It lends beauty. The wave lends beauty to the ocean. How boring it would be if the ocean was just one mass of water, nothing happening. Similarly, on this bedrock of Brahman, waves, individuals come, manifestation comes, exists for a while and goes back into the unmanifest. Nirguna, without gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas belong to prakriti, matter. Brahman is nirguna, elsewhere it is said gunatita, beyond the gunas. So therefore, you cannot put Brahman in a test tube and define it